Hey everyone, the purpose of this video is to give you some assistance with your coursework. Now, in your coursework, you're required to reformulate a balance sheet and an income statement. So I'm going to help you out here with the balance sheet element, and hopefully, if I've got time, I'll also help you out with the income statement. Now, what exactly are we trying to do when we reformulate a balance sheet? So you must remember from class that all starts with the assets equal equity plus debt formula. Assets comprise of operating assets and financial assets. Well, equity, CSE, as you know, is the American name if you want for common stock equity is the same thing, and debt comprises of operating liabilities and financial obligations. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to separate. So with operating assets, so the value creating activities. So operating assets minus operating liabilities, OA minus OL, equals CSE plus, well, financial obligations and minus financial assets. And this will give you this formula here. And what we will be trying to do is we will try to get to this format for the balance sheet. Now, this is a balance sheet that I've downloaded for Starbucks for 2015, 2016, and 2016. We're going to use that and try to reformulate. Now, to start off, what we do is we're going to get rid of some totals here. So as you see, we've got current assets right here. And then, so long-term investment, property, plant, and equipment. These normally are non-current assets. And then you have your current liabilities section. So what we'll try to do here is I'm going to try to get rid of this subtotal. So total liabilities, get rid of that. So I'm not changing any figures here. I'm just excluding some of these subtotals. There's a way we can check whether we're doing it right or wrong. And what I've done is, as a checklist, you will see the total assets figure. I'll put it down somewhere here, and this will act as a check for later. So let's start off with the reformulation. So what you see, cash and cash equivalents, short-term investment. These are examples of financial assets. So we're going to try and move those for now. And we'll start off with the operating assets. So operating assets, accounts receivable, yes, operating assets, inventories, prepaid expenses, long-term investment. These are financial assets, so I'm gonna put those here. I'm gonna use that later. Just gonna drag this down. What else? Now, equity and cost investments. This is a bit of a tricky one. I would say these are operating assets, and the reason is when you're investing in a company, equity investment, you're investing in a company. This means that you're investing in the activities of the company. So it's a tricky one. This one will go under operating assets. Then all of these here, they are operating assets. So once you've done that, I'm gonna insert a total here for operating assets. So operating assets. Just gonna insert a formula. And all we're doing, we're adding all of the operating assets here. So there you go. That's the total of the operating assets. So I'm just going to highlight that in yellow. I'm going to use that later. Right. Once we're done operating assets, the next thing we want to do is we want to try and get the operating liabilities. So first of all, let's get rid of these. So accounts payable, accrued liabilities, insurance reserves. These are operating liabilities. Current portion of long-term debt. These are financial obligations. So what I've done here, these ones are financial assets, and we're gonna come to that later. And then we have financial obligations, and under financial obligations we'll have current portion of long-term debt. Yep. So financial obligations, debt. Not surprisingly, this relates to financial obligations. We also have long-term debt. Current portion of long-term debt means whatever you will pay in the next 12 months. And then the balance is, depending on how long the debt is. Normally, anything which is more than 12 months is counted as long-term debt. And then you have other long-term liabilities. There's nothing mentioned here. I would classify that as operating liabilities. So this will be your operating liabilities. So let's have a total here for operating liabilities. Yep, so 4836, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the previous year. I'm gonna, again, let's highlight that in yellow, so that will make it a little bit distinguished, and we're gonna use that later. So once we have operating assets and operating liabilities, when can we get? So if we go back to a formula here, from this we can calculate our NOA, which stands for net operating assets. And how we do this, we're going to take the operating assets minus the operating liabilities. And there you go. So that's our net operating assets. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just highlight that in a different color. Let's use blue. There you go. Now, you'll see in our formula, once we've done net operating assets, the next thing we want to do is we want to group financial assets and financial obligations. Let's start off with the financial assets. So remember we took that off at some point. So there's our financial assets. Whoops. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag this down all the way here. So those are our financial assets. We'll get rid of this. Bring that down. Yeah, so those are financial assets. Yep, and I'm gonna sum them up. Financial assets for both years, and there you go. So these are financial assets. Let me highlight those in yellow. Yep, and from the formula, once we get our financial assets, the next thing you want is, well, you want the financial obligations. So let me give myself a little bit of space here. So the next thing I want to do is I want to calculate my financial obligations. And remember, there they are. So I'm just gonna select, I'm gonna drag them down, and this total here would be my financial obligations. So equal sum of these two. There you go. Right, and these are my financial obligations. Right. Now, once I have my financial obligations, again, let me just highlight that in yellow. You don't have to actually do this for the actual coursework, but I'm just trying to catch your attention on the key totals here. So don't worry about highlighting or not highlighting in the actual coursework. As long as you get the total right, it's not a problem. Now, once we have financial obligations, we can get our net financial obligations, so NFO, and this would be your financial obligations minus your financial assets. Yep, whoops, okay, so let's try reduce the decimal places here, so it looks quite scary. And let's do the same thing for DW. So there you go. That's your net financial obligations. Yes, again, I'm going to highlight that in yellow. Right. Now, once we have the net financial obligations, so I'm going to take you back to our formula. So NOA minus NFO should normally give you the total of your CSE, common stock equity. So what I'll do is I'm going to put that total here. So this is a total for NOA minus NFO, so net operating assets minus net financial obligations, so equal NOA, there is uh, minus net financial obligations here, right? So I'm going to do that for both years, right? Now from the equation, NOA minus NFO should equal to CSE. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color here because I want to again just catch your attention on this total. So this total here, NOA minus NFO, should normally equal the total of the equity section. So when you go down to the equity section, what do we find? Yep, they are exactly equal to the total equity section. Now, you would notice at the start of this video, I put total assets. These are the total assets as it appears on the original. So that's the value here. This is how it appears on the original balance sheet of Starbucks. So what I'm trying to do here is this. You see, total assets. We started off with assets here. It's made of operating assets and financial assets. So if I want to check whether I've done the reformulation correctly, let me try to add up operating assets and financial assets and see whether I've done everything correctly here. So there's my total for operating assets. I'm going to add, and I'm going to add the total for, there's my total for financial assets. And okay, yes, so there you go. It comes to 14,329.5. So hopefully this video has provided you with some help regarding how you reformulate financial statements. Well, particularly balance sheet. What you can do, you can go over it again, go back and look at the figures. And what I'll do, I will send the balance sheet information to your email address so that you can double check as you go along. You can practice in your own time so that you get the grips to reformulating balance sheet. And as I've told you before, I'll see if I can also reformulate an income statement. So that was it. Hopefully this video was helpful, and I'll see you next time. God bless.